Hello, everybody. Mike Beer and Andy Serling doing 3 Breeders' Cup previews. The first will be centering around Friday's races. This is the first. We'll talk about Friday's races, and we'll get right into it. We'll talk about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf race, which will be the first of 4 races on Friday's card. And I think the horse you have to start talking about, Mike, is the one we're going to look at here. And this is Hootenanny. We're actually going back to his debut on synthetic at Keeneland. But this horse has accomplished a great deal and was very good in finishing second in the prestigious Prix Mornay last time out at 6 furlongs in the turf.
Yeah, he's a horse in this race, whether you like him or not. He has some things working against him here as he stretches out in distance for the first time off of a little bit of a layoff. But whether you like him or not, he's a horse you have to deal with in here because he's very fast early. It's going to make it hard on some of these other horses who want to be forwardly placed in this race, I think.
Including his uncoupled stablemate, who we're going to get to a little bit later in this race because Luck of the Kitten's a speed.
Right.
This horse is faster, and I think that you could argue that Hootenanny has clearly shown that he's the best, most talented horse in the race. But whether or not that means he's the most talented horse at a mile around 2 turns is the other question. And for that reason, I'm playing against him.
Yeah, I'm against him too, and I guess I won't be that surprised if he just turns out to be better than these horses. But he does feel like one of those typical Wesley Ward 2-year-olds, very forward, way ahead of these horses early in the game, and you sort of always feel like with these horses, the crop's going to catch up to him at some point.
I don't disagree with that as well. Now, I think that the next race we're going to look at has some very dangerous participants. This was actually the Pilgrim at Belmont Park, and you're going to see Imperia breaking his maiden in his second start, first time Lasix getting the money. You're going to see the heavy favorite Startup Nation, what I thought was getting a questionable ride, sending him up on the inside. This horse wants to be free running on the outside, and I think that hampered him a great deal. The question is, which one of these two, or even the third place finisher, do you like, if any of them, Mike?
Yeah, I actually think the first and fourth place finishers of this race, I think they have big ramifications for this race. I think they both ran well in that race. Imperia, he sort of looks like the kind of 2-year-old who could be any kind right now. He was very good winning. I thought Startup Nation, like you, maybe didn't get the best ride in that race. And, it looked like on the turn, Joel Rosario was trying to get his momentum up and swing him to the outside, but Imperia was there. He couldn't get out there, and he just had to stay in, and it didn't work out. I think he's a very dangerous horse in this race.
I agree, and as we take a look at him at Saratoga, when he was easily beating International Star, who we'll also get to, you see the kind of race he can put in. When he gets, and he got a fast pace to run into, but he circled the field on the outside in the clear. He made that big swooping move, and he kept on running. It's not an easy thing to do in a turf race, and I agree. I think he showed in this race that he may be the most talented of the horses that have generally run in this country on the turf. Doesn't mean he's going to win because we'll get to Euros later, but I thought he was badly hampered last time. I respect Imperia. He's not in my top 3, but he'll be somewhere in pick 4s that I'll play. But I think Startup Nation of the American-based horses may be the most dangerous.
I agree with that 100%. I'm not way against Imperia in here, but I feel like if you just go back to the Pilgrim and watch the way that it was running, the trips these 2 horses got, I could easily argue the Startup Nation's every bit as good as that horse, and I really liked his first 2 starts when he got clean runs. He really finished both times.
No, I totally agree. Now, a couple of horses, one of them distant second place finisher to Startup Nation, International Star, as well as Conquest Tycoon, met in a synthetic race up in Canada. But both of these horses have shown, Conquest Tycoon winning the Summer Stakes, and also, of course, International Star running second to Startup Nation and running some good races. They can handle the turf. The question is, do you think either one of these horses is a factor in this Breeders' Cup race, Mike?
I mean, I just feel like it's maybe too tough a spot for them, and I don't want to take anything away from him, especially Conquest Typhoon, who I maybe won't hold the gray stakes against him. Maybe he's just more of a turf horse than a synthetic horse. I did like his Summer Stakes, but man, he just got a perfect trip in there, and I wonder about that field that he beat that day.
That's my feeling. I'm not a fan of the race, the Summer Stakes in general, and I'm kind of against those horses. Now, what about Luck of the Kitten, the other Wesley Ward horse? People are going to say he's the local horse. He has the experience on the lawn at Santa Anita. In my opinion, Mike, he beat a very weak field here, and because of the presence of Hootenanny, he can't control this race in the front end. I don't see how this horse wins this race, but I've said that about Ken Ramsey and eaten the words before.
Yeah, it's true. It doesn't feel like the Ramseys have been quite as hot this year as they were last year, but obviously their horses are always dangerous. Like you, his Zuma Beach that we just looked at, I just thought he got such a soft trip. The pace wasn't fast in there. I thought he had all the best of it. He's not having all the best of it in this race.
Yeah, I don't. I think he's overmatched in this race. Now, what about the horses coming out of the Bourbon at Keeneland? You've got Lawn Ranger, or held off Danny Boy, as well as another Chad Brown horse, a horse I think is inferior to Startup Nation. In my opinion, the second place finisher might be the one you want more. I thought these horses were too slow.
Yeah, I feel the same way about it. as far as Lawn Ranger goes, he is first-time Lasix, if that, sort of makes you feel like you want to give him another look in this race. But he's another horse. That was a really fast pace, and they just sat off it. Perfect trip for him. Danny Boy, I would prefer over him this time. I just don't know if I want either one of them in here.
Yeah, I'm really not a particular fan of that race. I just thought it was weaker. Now, let's talk Europeans. Let's start towards the inside. I think is commemorative. Actually, Wet Sail is on the inside. Wet Sail looks overmatched to me.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. He's got to stretch out in distance, which I think is a big negative for him. He's never been beyond 6 furlongs over there. He has improved right along. It feels like every race he's run a little bit better than the one prior to that. But, man, he's taken a pretty big step up here.
I agree. Now, sometimes you want the bigger priced Euros, and they do feel he has the potential to improve. He needs to. I like commemorative. He's actually going to be my top choice in this race. My feeling is that the 4 commemorative is a European that is improving with each start, and even though he's running some weaker fields, I like this trainer is brought over. He's got Justin Judge in the Fillies Turf. He's been successful. I think he won this race last year. He won the Juvenile Philly race last year. For Juddmonte to ship this one over, I think they have to be confident, and he's got the speed to get himself in position, and I like his post. I think he gets good position, and I like his chances over Startup Nation.
I wonder about this horse. When I looked at this race, I felt this way about commemorative. I think he might be the best horse that the Europeans are sending over for this race. He seems like a real talent to me. I also don't like the fact that his 2 wins over there, both times on straightaway courses, when they just put him on the front and let him gallop along. And to me, he can't get that trip in this race. And so I just wonder if he's the kind of horse who, if he gets in behind horses somewhere, has to accelerate out of turns, if that's going to work against him. I think he's the best horse. I just think he has things working against him here, and so I don't want him in this race.
It's a fair enough question. Now, you have to talk about the 2 horses that are coming out of the Grand Criterium on Arc Day at Longchamp, and that's Octobonte as well as the 7 War Envoy. Even though Octobonte finished behind that one, and I saw that you picked him second, your picks, I too thought he ran the better race.
Yeah, I did too. We'll see what happens with him. He's been a very green horse over there. If you look at the Timeform comments that we have, there are handicappers over there. They like him, but they think he has these quirks that really work against him. A very green horse, and he doesn't always have his head in the game, but he had blinkers on for that race, and I feel like he took a step forward, and I think he's going to have blinkers on again on Friday, and so I felt like he could step forward here. I like some of his races.
I agree. I've got him third in here. I went 4-10-9. I believe that you went 10-9 something else in here.
I put Startup Nation on top. I know that the Europeans tend to come over and dominate our turf horses, but I'm not so sure that Startup Nation and even Imperia can't match up with some of those horses.
I don't disagree at all. Actonabi, for what it's worth, was buried on the inside while the other was getting first run. We'll move on to the second Breeders' Cup race on Friday, and that's the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And I have to say that this appears to be the least competitive Breeders' Cup race we are running. This horse, Golden Sense, and you see him in the Pat O'Brien beating Fedbiz, who we'll deal with here. I mean, he's the lone speed, and he's the best horse. On paper, he's very, very hard to beat, Mike.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. I feel like, if you have a set of PPs in front of you, you're going to look at this race the same way. He's better than these horses. I don't think the rail draw is any kind of drawback for him at all. I think it's a great draw for him. He's going to go from the inside. He gets to save all the ground. He'll make the front into the first turn, and he's just better than his horses.
I totally agree. Now, Golden Ticket, I think, is an interesting horse. Of course, he finished this race last year, and Golden Ticket did just get up with a great ride from Joel Rosario to beat Pants on Fire, who's far from impossible in this race. I don't know about Pants on Fire if I can trust him to ship his game out west, and Golden Ticket needs so much to go right, and with the lack of pace in here, how's he supposed to make up that big gap between him and Golden Sense?
Yeah, I don't think that he can do it, and between him and Pants on Fire, I think they both have races to get to that could maybe make them factors in here. I don't know if they're still capable of running their very best races anymore. They're both milers. This is their distance. I just sort of feel like looking at them that maybe I wanted to go in a different direction outside of Golden Sense. And I
also would prefer Golden Sense at a 1-turn mile to a 2-turn mile. I think 2 turns mitigates his kick. Now, a horse that I am interested in is Taperture. And Taperture and Vickers in Trouble both in this race met in the West Virginia Derby. And you see Taperture extracting himself from the trouble in the inside and getting the job done. Vickers in Trouble will finish third. Taperture was against the track last time in the Pennsylvania Derby. Not way against it, but wide enough that I think he has to be upgraded. I don't know that he beats Golden Sense, but he's very much my second use.
Yeah, I'm using this horse as well. I haven't been a huge fan of his, but when you look at him on paper, he has to have upside still. And he's a horse who they ran him in the Kentucky Derby that didn't work out. It was never going to work out. He's really hasn't run that often since that race. Only 3 starts since then. I think he's the kind of horse. He's going to keep coming forward, and this is a good spot for him to take a step.
I totally agree. Vickers in Trouble feels like he's chasing from the outside. Yeah. He's not fast enough really to deal with Golden Sense and not good enough to beat Taperture. What about, I think that actually does it. Bourbon Courage is not running in this race. No. I believe he's running in the sprint. Listen, I went very sort of obvious in this race. I went Golden Sense over Temperature and FedBiz, you took a slightly different approach, but the same horses.
Yeah, we have the same 3 horses. I just didn't see any way in this race to make a case for one of the longer priced horses. Maybe somebody will slip in there, but man, playing against Golden Sense is tough in this race.
Yeah, it feels like he's a place. I'm going to spread in some other races, but I'm going to anchor the ticket, like a lot of people with him. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf is the next race that we will take a look at. And I think this is a very interesting race. And the race we're going to start with is one where 3 horses that Chad Brown has in here all come out of it. And if you haven't watched Lady Eli win the Miss Griot, you've really got to watch this race because she wins with absolute ease.
Yeah, this is 2 races for her in her career, and both times couldn't have been more impressive. She's on the outside here, the 9. She looked like at the top of the stretch, like maybe she was just sort of waiting on horses a little bit. But once she got running, I mean, she left this field in an instant. I mean, this horse has a lot of ability.
Yeah, she's a very, very good horse, and I don't think people should underestimate her. Now, Partisan Politics, who finished 4th in that race, she's a dangerous horse in here as well because she didn't break. It was a very slow pace. She found herself blocked in last, never had a real seam to running, got caught down the inside. I don't think she was beating Lady Eli, but I don't believe there's that big a gap between their abilities, and I think she's also a very dangerous player in here.
Yeah, I think you and I both felt the same way about that Miss Griot Stakes, where maybe she wasn't going to beat Lady Eli anyway, but she certainly didn't get a fair chance to do it. She's shown enough, I think, in her 2 prior starts to think she can run a little bit. She didn't get the right trip in that race. If there's a pace in front of her here, she's got the right kind of post. Save ground early. She can get clear late. I think she'll be running at the end.
She ran very well in Saratoga when she won the stake up there, and she's going to be a big price and has to be used. Now, what about a couple of horses that met up in Canada, the Talma, the co-feature with the Summer, and that's Conquest Harlanate, who's beating Isabella Sings. For me, I don't like the way Skinnerbox has run back since the race, who ran 3rd in there. Mark Hasse has not yet delivered on the biggest stage, though he's had a lot of good horses, and I just didn't think they were good enough.
Yeah, I really don't like this race that much. You know, if you came right down to it, maybe I would give Isabella Sings a little more credit just because she was closer to the pace in there while wide. But overall, I just don't like that race that much.
Yeah, I'm going to be staying away from those horses as well. What about She's Complete, who's the California horse, and she actually won a stake at Del Mar. She got a very good trip that day. I thought the field she beat out there was vastly inferior, the kind of horses that Lady Eli is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add to that. I didn't like this race that much. I hate to feel like I'm just siding with the New York horses since that's how people sort of look at us. But I am. I think they are better horses right now.
I totally agree. Now, I believe the next horse we're going to look at is actually the morning line favorite, and that's the 3 Sunset Glow. And she has run very well, but she's been running well on synthetic. Her win on the turf was very authoritative at Belmont Park. It was also a 5 furlong race. She went out to Ascot and ran very well in the Albany to finish 2nd in a big field. Can she get the distance?
I don't know if she can. She's the kind of horse. I do think she has some ability.
Oh, yeah.
But, stretching out in distance is a big question for her. She won a grade 1 last time on synthetic. She's clearly has some quality. I don't like her stretching out. I don't like her with the other speed in this race. And I also don't like the way Wesley Hort's bringing all of these horses into these races off of little layoffs. That's never been a thing that I like. And he seems to be doing it with all of his younger horses in here. And I just don't like that.
No, I don't disagree with that. Now, does Timeform project this to have a fast pace, this race?
Yeah, we are projecting a fast pace for this race. That's going to work against this horse.
That's absolutely going to work against that horse. Now, it will work in the favor of this horse, Reina de Bateria, who won the stake at Keeneland, the Jessamine, over Quality Rocks in her last start. She got a pace that didn't really collapse, but there was a pace setter that was way in front. I actually thought that the horse who finished 2nd, Quality Rocks, ran pretty well. I just think these horses, once again, are a cut below, and Reina de Bateria has shown the racetrack to be perhaps a cut below.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I tell you what, about Reina de Bateria, I maybe had the toughest time deciding what to do with her than anybody else because she is going to have a pace setup that she needs. And if you look at her closely on paper, she has really run well in all 3 of her starts. She got a good ride last time from Rosario, but I like the way she finished that day. Her race in the P.G. Johnson at Saratoga, she was wide all the way behind Partisan Politics. I forced out a couple of different times. That wasn't a great trip for her.
And to be fair, even though Partisan Politics improved in the P.G. Johnson, Rita Imperia did beat her in their respective debuts, and I don't think that should be ignored. And if I like partisan politics, I don't think I should be too stubborn and probably have this horse somewhere in my pick fours, more so than Quality Rocks. What about the Lady Zuzu, the Wayne Lucas horse that broke her maiden at Keeneland impressively? I thought this was an extraordinarily impressive effort. You guys didn't like it from a speed figure standpoint. I don't agree. The other two speed horses finished way back in this race, and they weren't such huge prices, actually, and they're not bad turf horses. I thought this was an impressive effort.
I could not agree more with that. And, you know, I actually put this horse on top in this race. I'm going to bet a little money on this horse. This horse has a very big pedigree, first of all. She's a half to optimizer. It was a really good horse. I thought she was a horse to follow out of her Saratoga debut. Going shorter, I thought she ran sneaky well that day. They stretched her out at Keeneland for this race. And like you, I thought she ran way better than any speed figure is going to suggest from a tough post. He had to go in there. She contested a fast pace. She looked like she had plenty left through the stretch to me. I think this is a really dangerous horse at a big price.
I agree. Let's leave those picks up if we can, because we'll talk about some Europeans, but I actually have her fourth, and she's totally in my play. I mean, you have to realize you narrow these races down, but you've got to keep an open mind, especially if you're going thin with a horse like Golden Sense and you're playing pick fours. Now, talking about the Europeans, I thought Osala was the one I wanted the most. It's not that I love her. I just, you know, the trainer is not a success-bringing horse in, but he did bring in Sky Lantern for this race, and she was very unlucky and won 3 Group 1s in Europe in the following year. I think she's a horse that's coming to this race the right way, and she also draws better. 2 of the Europeans draw completely outside. That made me throw them out. This horse and the horse you have second drew much better. I prefer this one. You prefer the other one.
Yeah, this horse does have the better post, and I will just say, and I don't think there's that much to choose between all of the Europeans. I don't think this horse did get the best of the draw. Won 3 of her last 4. The one she didn't win when they tried her in the Group 1, she took a pretty good run at that race, too. She got turned away at the end by Cursory Glass, but she took a run at that race. This horse is okay.
Yeah, I think she's okay as well, and she draws well towards the inside. I don't know about Civilier. We'll see. It's a horse for Marty Schwartz, who seems to buy the right horses. I had mixed feelings about this one. I didn't love this horse's last race, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the one thing I did like about her race, I like her earlier races, she was more of a speed type, going 5 and 6 furlongs, and they were just putting her on the front end, and she was good in those races. I liked that they took her back last time. She came from last, and she was running at the end of the race. They took her to the inside. I think that's something you and I both agree we don't like. And they came up the rail. She didn't have a big kick in there, but I wonder if that compromised her. She goes to Chad. She gets Lasix on. I just thought she was a little interesting at a price. Overall, of the Europeans, I would have taken Qualify if she didn't have such a bad post.
Yeah, I just can't take her from post 14, and that's something we'll comp later, especially in the Breeders' Cup Turf. The last race on Saturday is the Distaff, and obviously the Distaff lost some luster with Beholder getting withdrawn recently, and there are really a lot of question marks in this race. There's no question that Close Hatches, who will finish ahead of Stanwyck, who's in here, who I'm no longer playing, she'll probably win and pay $50. When she runs her good races, she's probably on the cusp, if not being the horse to beat. My problem is the race after this at Keeneland. I can't make an excuse for her, and I just can't take her from an outside post coming off an inexplicably bad effort.
Listen, I feel the same way about it. I don't know. My problem with this race is I don't know what the alternatives are in this race. I think she's the best horse in here. I hate to take a horse at a short price coming off a race like her last one, where I have no excuse for that.
We'll look at her last one, actually. We'll talk about Don't Tell Sophia and Ria Antonia as well. But what excuse do you make? She was dead empty. You could see that Ria Antonia had more horse than her with a half mile to go. Maybe she just didn't fire. The only 2 bad races she's ever run have been in Kentucky. But, man, those are grasping at straws with a short-priced horse.
Yes, I don't like that excuse either. And I know that I think that's the one her connections are going with, is just that she didn't like the track out there and she didn't fire. I don't like that excuse, especially for short-priced horses. My problem with this race was I don't know where to go outside of her, because I don't really want any of these horses. The 2 that beat her and the Spinster, I could never play Ria Antonia. Don't Tell Sophia. I know that she'll be running at the end of this race falls apart. I'm not a fan.
She is a 17 for 17, I think, in the money on the dirt. I mean, she has an amazing record on the dirt, and I don't think she should be counted. I don't think she's going to win here, but I think she's a very, very cool horse. This is probably the favorite now because of Close Hatch's last race, Untappable. And I believe that people will underestimate her last couple of races. She was 3 wide at Parks the whole way around and made the attacking move. The second-place finisher, Sweet Reason, saved ground the whole way and angled out in the stretch. To me, Untappable ran a much better race than it looks here. She ran better in the Haskell when she chased outside, way too far outside. Has she maybe lost a step for her best race in the spring? Maybe, but I still think she's pretty darn good.
She is pretty darn good. I think they've made it a tough call with her because of the way they've campaigned her after the Kentucky Oaks. Because once they got to the Kentucky Oaks, she looked like, boy, she could really be just any kind of horse. She was really impressive all through the spring, and then she was really impressive that day. And since then, the Mother Goose, fine. She was never going to lose that race. They took their shot in the Haskell. I agree with your take on the Haskell. I think she ran better than it looks that day. It's her last race that bothers me a little bit. I know that she was against the track. I just don't care for that field that much, and I didn't think that she was so impressive in there that I wanted her as the favorite in this race. I'm not saying she can't win because, to me, the alternatives aren't there. I'm taking Close Hatches over her in this race.
The problem is that we frequently bet horses that run fourth with her trip in the cotillion because we talk about the trip again. Now, we're also usually betting horses that are 8 or 10 to 1,
exactly.
So the price is commensurate. Having said that, I think her last race is much better than it looks. We'll find out. I'm still betting against her. I'm betting this horse. Maybe she has no chance, but here's Ayatapa's race in the Vanity. This is the fastest race, at least from a buyer speed figure, and I believe from TimeformUs figures that any of these horses have run this year. She did it when they went to the front end with her. Now, she got left last time, and she's got to get out of the gate cleanly. But in my opinion, she's going to have to outrun Tiz Midnight. If she is my horse, I am telling the rider, Joe Talamo, no fooling around here, buddy. Get her out of the gate and set her to the front. If she goes too fast and she backs up and gets nothing, I can live with that. But if they rate her in here, she has zero chance. So if she can brake sharply, and that's an if, she can go to the front in here because she's fast. She's capable of running very well, and she's a California horse. My problem is, Mike, I don't like anybody. I don't trust Close Hatches. I don't totally trust Untapable, even though I think she's the horse to beat. I'm looking for something. Why not take a horse at a price that I think there's a race in there if things can go right? It's not like it's impossible that she can speed pop the field.
I can't argue with any of that. I put her third behind the other two, but I think you make a very valid point in this race in that, you know, the two favorites in this race don't have to be horses that you want, especially Close Hatches off of that last race. I took her just because I think she's the best horse, and I think that they'll probably sit with her this time. I don't think they're going to send her off to the front from
Where is she going to be in the first
post 11.
No, 3-4 wide?
That's the real question of the race, because if they try and make the front from her with her from out there, or try and get up close, and she's out there contesting it wide, she's not winning. But she's shown in the past that she can sit and run. I think if they ride her that way, I'm just going to take the position she's better than these horses, last race aside.
Okay, certainly possible. We have to show Belle Gallanty. I mean, she's a dual Grade 1 winning horse, and when she bombed, it was in the mud in the personal end, so she won't have to deal with. I think she's dressed up off of getting a loose lead in this race, but I don't think she should be completely dismissed. She's accomplished some pretty good things, but she can't get the front in this race, and I don't think she's good enough to beat these from behind. But she didn't finish that far behind Closed Hatches when they ran together in the Ogden Phipps.
Yeah, Phipps was not a poor effort. She's the kind of horse, 9 for 43. I think you just want to sort of cover up it all. Just look at what she's done for Rudy. She's 5 for 7 with 2 Grade 1s. She's a different horse for this guy. I agree with you. She can't make the front in this race, and I don't think she can win it from off the pace.
But if she wins this, she's going to be the older filly or mare. Looking forward to this race. Looking forward to all the Breeders' Cup races. That does it for day one. Friday's 4 Breeders' Cup races. Mike and I will be back with a couple of segments for day 2.